The royal court made Nera Voss kneel beneath the dying white wolf because no one believed an abandoned Omega could hold a sacred breath and live. That was the punishment. Not a blade, not a whipping, not exile into the winter pines. Something holier, colder, and cruel enough to look like law. The Hall of First Howls had been opened before moonrise. White mourning banners hung from black pillars, and every noble pack in Ravenglen had gathered to watch the last sacred wolf of the northern shrine die before the throne. At the center of the hall, the white wolf lay on a bed of ashwood roots. Her fur had once been snow-bright, now gray streaked her ribs, and each breath left her muzzle in thin silver mist. Beside her waited a crystal bowl, clear as frozen water, frost crawling over its rim though no hand touched it. A breath holder. A sacred vessel, a relic no servant was meant to touch. Nera knelt before it with black rope around her wrists and mud drying on her gray dress. She had only crossed the royal grounds at dawn to gather frostleaf for Mara, an old washerwoman whose lungs had filled with winter sickness. But frostleaf grew beside the shrine path, and shrine paths belonged to wolves with names, bloodlines, and the right to be mourned. Nera had none of those things. "Look at her," Lady Celine Marr said from the front row, moonstones glittering in her black hair. "She still thinks silence makes her innocent." A few nobles smiled. Nera kept her head bowed. Abandoned girls survived by making their faces into closed doors. High healer Oren Vex stood beside the dying wolf in white robes, his hands folded calmly before him. They were elegant hands, healing hands, the kind that knew exactly where pain lived inside a body. "By shrine law," he said, "the last breath of a sacred wolf must be received by one chosen vessel and carried unbroken to the throne." Nera's gaze flicked toward the black dais. Alpha King Caelan Veyr sat there without moving. He looked carved from night and winter, black armor across his broad shoulders, dark moonsteel crown over pale gray eyes. A white wolf fur mantle lay folded beside his throne, though Nera noticed he never let it touch his skin. Power surrounded him like a second throne, yet something beneath it felt wrong. Too still. His right hand gripped the arm of his chair, as if he were holding down pain no one else was allowed to see. Oren bowed toward him. "Majesty, this girl trespassed upon sacred ground while your mother's wolf was taking her final hours. A thief might be whipped, a spy might be hanged, but an abandoned Omega, who walks where holy wolves go to die, has touched a deeper law. His mother's wolf." The words changed the hall. This was not only a sacred beast, this was the last living remnant of the dead queen. Oren looked down at Nera. Let her hold the last breath. A murmur passed through the nobles. "It will freeze her lungs. If she had a wolf, it might carry the chill." A soft laugh followed. "She has no wolf." Nera heard it. Everyone made certain she always heard that part first. No wolf, no family name, no scent worth remembering. Celine stepped closer, smiling gently enough to look kind. "High healer, is it safe to place a sacred breath in a creature without lineage?" The word creature struck harder than girl would have. Oren's mouth curved. "If the vessel is unworthy, the breath will reject her. And if it rejects her, the court will witness what shrine law decides." No one asked what that meant. They all knew enough to enjoy not knowing. Nera looked at the dying wolf. For the first time, the animal opened her eyes. They were white. Not blind white, moon white, vast and grieving. The wolf stared at Nera as if she had arrived late to a place where someone had been waiting for her all her life. Caelan's voice cut through the hall. "Enough." Every noble stilled. "Was she found stealing from the shrine?" he asked. Oren's smile did not change. "She was found carrying frostleaf from royal ground." "For herself?" "For another servant, according to her claim." "My claim is true," Nera said. The hall reacted as if a candle had spoken during a funeral. Oren's eyes sharpened. "You speak when shrine law is read?" Nera lowered her gaze. "I speak when my reason is buried." A nobleman laughed once. Caelan did not. For a breath, something behind his eyes shifted, like a wolf lifting its head in darkness. Oren saw it too. He stepped between Nera and the throne. "She gathered medicine," Caelan said. "She trespassed," Oren replied. "For a dying woman. For a woman already beneath shrine concern." Nera's chest went cold. Mara had washed royal cloaks for 30 years. Blood from war fur, ash from burial veils, milk from nursery blankets. Yet to Orin, she was beneath concern, a pair of hands, a bent back, a body the kingdom had used and would not mourn. Nera lifted her head. "So is the wolf," she said. Silence crashed through the hall. Celine whispered. What did she say? Nera's pulse hammered against the rope at her wrists, but the dying wolf's white eyes held her still. "You call her sacred because she is dying, where nobles can see her," Nera said. "If she had carried your burdens unseen, you would call her beneath concern too." A growl rolled through the room. Not from the court, from the white wolf. It was weak, almost gone, but every wolf-blooded noble heard it. Caelan rose from the throne. The hall moved with him, not in body, but in breath. Guards straightened. Nobles lowered their eyes. Celine's smile vanished. The Alpha King descended the black steps and stopped before Nera. "Why did you cross the shrine path?" he asked. Mara could not breathe. "Who is Mara?" "A washerwoman. A kinless servant?" The words should have sounded dismissive. From his mouth, they sounded like a test. Nera answered carefully. "No one is kinless to the person who remembers them." A flicker crossed his face. Behind him, the dying wolf exhaled. Silver breath spilled across the roots. The crystal bowl rang once. Orin turned sharply. The bowl had begun to frost from the inside. The white wolf's eyes remained on Nera. For the first time, fear entered Orin's face. Not fear of death or royal anger. Fear of recognition. "Majesty," Orin said quickly. "The breath is loosening. The vessel must be chosen now." Caelan's jaw tightened. "I have not ordered it. Shrine law has already answered." Orin lifted the crystal bowl with both hands. One thin crack of silver light moved across his healer's ring, then vanished before the king could see it. "If the breath escapes uncarried," Orin continued, "your mother's wolf dies without witness." Caelan looked at the white wolf, and for one moment the king vanished. A son stood in his place. Then the king returned. "What happens to the girl if she fails?" Orin lowered the bowl toward Nera. "Nothing undeserved." Before Caelan could answer, the healer placed the crystal in Nera's bound hands. The cold nearly broke her. It rushed through her palms, up her arms, into her bones. Frost spread over the rope at her wrists. Nera bit the inside of her cheek, but she did not cry out. The dying wolf dragged in one last breath. Every torch in the hall bent toward her. "She will drop it," someone whispered. "Her lungs will close." Caelan stood close enough that Nera could see the pulse in his throat. His body had angled toward her, as if he might step between her and the court if the breath turned violent. He did not move. Not yet. The white wolf exhaled. Silver-white mist poured into the crystal bowl. The cold in Nera's hands became pain. Then fire. Then something stranger than both. The breath did not feel like death. It felt like memory. Nera saw snow. A woman running beneath a blood-red moon with a bundle held to her chest. A white wolf bleeding beside her. A healer's hand closing around a silver cradle charm. A voice whispering, "Hide her where no crown will look." Nera gasped. Orin stepped closer, pale now. "Hold still." The last breath slid into the bowl. The white wolf's body went quiet. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then every wolf in the Hall of First Howls lowered its head. Not the humans. The wolves. The guard wolves near the doors. The noble wolf spirits behind their masters. Even the faint, wounded darkness behind Caelan's shoulders bowed toward the Omega, kneeling on the floor. The silver breath inside the bowl began to rise. "No," Orin whispered. It curled around Nera's wrists, melting the frost from the rope. It did not choke her. It did not reject her. It lifted above her bowed head and formed a crown. White breath and moonfire, wolf fangs and trembling light. Recognition moved through the hall like thunder trying to stay silent. Caelan went utterly still. Behind him, his silent wolf shadow raised its head for the first time. And from the dead white wolf's unmoving mouth came one final whisper. "Luna." One moonstone in Celine's hair cracked black. The crown of white breath did not vanish. It trembled above Nera's head like a living thing, pale and fierce, its wolf fang points bending with every shallow breath she took. The crystal bowl had gone warm in her hands. That frightened her more than the cold had. Sacred things were not supposed to soften for abandoned girls. No one in the Hall of First Howls moved. Then one guard wolf near the western doors lowered its body fully to the floor. A second followed. Then a third. The sound of wolf bodies kneeling against stone spread through the hall, heavy and final, until the nobles looked less like rulers and more like people standing among witnesses they could no longer command. High healer Oren Vex recovered first. "Corruption," he said. The word cracked through the silence. Nera looked at him. His face had smoothed itself back into calm, but sweat shone near his temple. One hand covered the healer's ring on his finger, hiding the silver fracture that had flashed there moments before. "This is not blessing," Oren said louder. "The last breath has been tainted." The white crown flickered. Nera felt it like a touch against the inside of her skull. Not painful, only warning. Lady Selene stepped backward. Her fingers had flown to her hair, where one moonstone had cracked black among the silver beads. She tried to cover it before anyone noticed, but Caelan noticed. So did Oren. His eyes cut to her for half a heartbeat. Too fast for most. Not too fast for Nera. Alpha King Caelan Veyr stood between the throne and the Omega, kneeling on the floor, his face unreadable. Yet the darkness behind his shoulders had changed. His wolf shadow, silent until now, had lifted its head and fixed its dim eyes on Nera's crown, as if it had smelled rain after years of thirst. "Explain," Caelan said. Oren bowed. "Majesty, sacred breath crowns only two things: a dying wolf's chosen Luna, or the vessel carrying forbidden theft." A murmur ran through the court. Nera's hands tightened around the bowl. "I stole nothing." "No," Oren said softly. "That may be the danger. Something may have been placed inside you long before you knew to name it." The words struck too close to the vision. Snow. Blood-red moon. A woman running with a bundle. Nera forced herself not to look afraid. Selene saw the effort and stepped into the opening. "Majesty," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound loyal. "If the girl is carrying a stolen sacred will, she cannot leave this hall. If that breath belongs to your mother's wolf, it belongs to the crown." Not to him, Nera thought. To the crown. Caelan's gaze did not leave Oren. "And what does shrine law demand?" Oren's answer came too quickly. A severing. The wolves stirred. Nera felt the crown flare. Caelan's jaw tightened. "From her? From whatever is using her." Oren turned toward the guards. "The girl must be bound in silver and taken beneath the shrine. I will examine the breath before it infects the king's line." The bowl pulsed in Nera's hands. For one breath, she heard the dead white wolf again, not in words, but in grief. "Do not let him take it." Nera looked up. Caelan was watching her now. Not softly, not kindly, as if she were a blade found beneath his pillow and a key found inside a locked door at the same time. "Did you hear something?" he asked. The court leaned closer. Nera could have lied. She should have. Abandoned girls survived by giving powerful people only the answers that kept them alive. But the crown above her head burned brighter when she opened her mouth. "Yes," she said. Oren went still. Caelan took one step closer. "What?" Nera swallowed. Not words. A warning. Selene's voice sharpened. "Convenient." The white crown snapped once with light. Selene gasped as the cracked moonstone in her hair split wider, blackness spreading through it like ink through ice. For one breath, the black frost inside it shaped itself like a tiny wolf fang. Every eye turned. For the first time, her perfect face faltered. Oren moved before panic could grow. "Enough, the Omega is provoking relic reaction. Bind her." Two guards advanced. Caelan did not order them back. That hurt more than Nera expected. He had questioned the healer. He had watched the wolves kneel. He had stood close enough to protect her, and still had not chosen to do it. Of course he had not. Kings did not risk thrones for abandoned girls with impossible crowns. The first guard reached for her arm. The breath crown dropped, not onto Nera's head, into the bowl. Silver-white mist struck the crystal with a sound like a heartbeat. The hall darkened. Every torch bent low, and from inside the bowl, an image rose. A woman in a torn white gown ran through snow, clutching a newborn wrapped in wolf fur. Beside her limped the same white wolf, bleeding from 3 black wounds. Behind them, a younger Oren Vex stood beneath the shrine arch, his healer's ring shining with the same cracked silver light. The court gasped. Oren's face emptied. The vision blurred before anyone could see the child's face. Then the dead queen's voice filled the hall. "Hide my daughter where the crown will never search." Nera stopped breathing. Caelan's hand closed around the hilt of his sword. The image shattered into mist. The bowl went black. And beneath Nera's bound hands, something inside the crystal began to knock. The knocking inside the crystal bowl sounded too much like a heart. Nera almost dropped it. Caelan moved first. His hand closed around the rim of the bowl before it could slip from her numb fingers. He did not take it from her. He only steadied it, his black-gloved hand covering half the crystal while the thing inside knocked again. Once. Twice. Every wolf in the hall whined. Oren's face had gone bloodless. "Majesty," he said, "step away from her." Caelan did not. His pale eyes stayed on the blackened bowl. Why? Because whatever is inside that vessel just spoke with the dead queen's voice. "No," Caelan said quietly. "It showed your face first." The hall tightened around those words. Oren bowed his head, but Nera saw his throat move. "I was shrine healer in those years. I stood at many rites. Grief makes old memories choose familiar faces. Does grief also crack a healer's ring?" Oren's hand closed into a fist. For one breath, no one spoke. Celine stepped forward, still hiding the cracked moonstone in her hair. "Majesty, the court saw only fragments. A vision from a tainted bowl cannot accuse a royal healer." Caelan looked at her. Celine lowered her eyes at once, but not before Nera saw fear sharpen behind her beauty. The bowl knocked again. This time, the sound did not come from inside the crystal. It came from beneath the floor. The black stones of the Hall of First Howls trembled. A seam of silver light opened between Nera's knees and the dead white wolf's ashwood bed. It ran across the floor like a thin vein, straight toward the throne, then stopped at Caelan's boots. The Alpha King went still. Oren whispered, "No." Nera heard him. So did Caelan. "What lies beneath this hall?" Caelan asked. Oren's answer came too late. Old shrine foundations, nothing more. The silver seam pulsed. The dead white wolf's body gave one final shudder. Not breath, comment. The crystal bowl warmed in Nera's hands until the frost on her wrists melted. The blackness inside the bowl thinned, and beneath it, something pale pressed against the crystal from within. A puff. Small. Newborn small. The court recoiled. Nera stared, unable to breathe. The paw vanished, replaced by darkness again, but the knocking continued. Caelan's voice lowered. "What did my mother's wolf carry?" Oren lifted his chin. His calm returned too quickly, like a mask pulled over a wound. "Nothing living, Majesty. This is forbidden breathcraft. It imitates life to confuse bloodlines." Nera looked down at the bowl. It did not feel like imitation. It felt frightened. She knew that feeling too well. Caelan turned to the guards. "No one touches her until I command it." Relief struck Nera so hard it hurt. Then he looked back at her, and the relief became something more dangerous. His expression was not trust. Not yet. It was suspicion sharpened by need. "You will come beneath the shrine," he said. Oren's eyes flashed. "Majesty, I must conduct the severing alone." "No." One word. The healer stopped. Caelan stepped closer to Nera. "If the last breath carried my mother's will, I will hear it with my own ears." "And if the Omega is the danger?" Celine asked. Caelan's gaze did not leave Nera. "Then I will see it before any of you name it for me." Nera should have felt protected. Instead, she felt measured. The guards cut the rope from her wrists, but silver cuffs replaced it before warmth could return to her skin. Caelan noticed her flinch. His jaw tightened, but he did not order the cuffs removed. Not yet. Nera understood that kind of mercy. Half given, half withheld. The silver seam in the floor widened into a stair. Gasps rose from the nobles as black stone folded inward, revealing steps carved beneath the hall. Cold air breathed upward, carrying the scent of old ash, wet roots, and something faintly sweet. Milk. Nera stiffened. She had never smelled that in a shrine. Oren moved to her side, too close. "Careful, girl. Ancient places feed on fear." Nera looked at his healer's ring. The silver crack had spread. "So do living men," she said. His eyes hardened. For the first time, His gentle voice disappeared. Do not mistake a crown of breath for power. Before she could answer, Caelan stepped between them. The movement was small. The message was not. Orin bowed, but fury lived in the bend of his neck. They descended with only 4 guards: Orin, Selene, Caelan, and Nera. The court remained above, whispering like birds trapped under glass. The white wolf's body lay still behind them, but as Nera took the first step down, the bowl knocked once more. This time, she heard a whisper inside her ribs. Below, the stairs ended in a buried chamber. Its walls were covered in old moon script, but every line had been scratched through. At the center stood a stone cradle filled with black ash. Above it hung dozens of tiny silver charms, each shaped like a wolf fang. Nera's knees weakened. She had seen one of those charms in the vision. Caelan saw it, too. His face changed. Orin rushed forward. Old shrine relics, nothing more. The bowl burned in Nera's hands. The ash inside the cradle stirred. One silver charm broke from its chain and fell. It landed at Nera's feet. Then a woman's voice rose from the cradle, soft with terror and love. Do not let Orin name her orphan. Caelan drew his sword. Orin smiled, and every scratched-out line on the chamber wall began to bleed white light. White light bled from the scratched-out moon script like wounds reopening after years of silence. Nera stepped back, but the silver charm at her feet rolled after her. It should not have moved. It did. The tiny wolf-fang charm tapped against her bare toe, cold and urgent, then split down the center. Inside it lay a curl of white fur no longer than a thread. Caelan stared at it. Orin's smile thinned. Old grief-like spectacle. Old grief named you, Caelan said. The healer looked at him with wounded dignity. And you would trust a dead woman's echo over the man who kept your kingdom alive? The chamber tightened around the question. Nera could feel the trap in it. Orin was not begging for belief. He was reminding Caelan of debt, years of medicine, years of counsel, years of a dying wolf kept breathing just long enough for the throne to feel grateful. Selene stood near the stairs, one hand still buried in her hair. The cracked moonstone pulsed black between her fingers. The bowl knocked again. Nera flinched. Caelan heard the sound and turned toward her. What is inside it? I don't know. Do not lie to me. I am not. Her voice shook, but she did not lower it. I have spent my life being told there was nothing inside me worth naming. If there is something there now, Majesty, I am the last person they would have told. For a moment, the anger in his face broke. Not vanished. Broke, as if her words had touched a place in him that was already cracked. Then the cradle of ash stirred. The white light on the walls crawled faster, filling the scratched lines until the old moon script became readable again. Nera did not know the language, but the bowl did. It warmed against her palms, and meaning poured through her blood in fragments. Breath carried. Name hidden. Wolf murdered. Child removed. Luna unclaimed. Nera's knees weakened. Orin saw it. She is receiving contamination. Sever it now, or the breath will root. He pulled a crescent blade from his sleeve. Caelan's sword rose before the healer could take a step. The sound of steel in that chamber was soft. The meaning was not. Orin stopped. Selene whispered, Majesty. Caelan did not look at her. No one cuts her while I stand here. The words struck Nera harder than protection should have. Not because they were tender, they were not. They sounded like law spoken through clenched teeth. But all her life, people had decided what could be taken from her because no one important was watching. Now the king was watching. Orin's eyes darkened. You risk your mother's final will for an Omega whose name appeared from nowhere? No, Caelan said. I risk trusting the man who keeps trying to silence it. The cradle cracked. A line split through the black ash. White breath seeped out, carrying the scent of snow, milk, and blood. The silver charms above the cradle began to swing, though there was no wind. One by one, they turned toward Nera. Selene made a sound like pain. The cracked moonstone in her hair answered with a black glow. Nera saw it clearly now. The stone was not merely broken. Something had been trapped inside it. A sliver of dark breath twisted into the shape of a fang. Orin moved his hand behind his back. Nera saw the motion. Orin, she whispered. Caelan's gaze snapped to the healer. Too late. Oren struck the floor with his ringed hand. The silver crack in his healer's ring burst open, and black frost raced across the chamber in a circle. It surrounded Nera, Caelan, the cradle, and the bowl before the guards could move. The torches died. Selene stumbled backward outside the circle, untouched. Of course, Nera thought. Of course she was outside it. Oren lowered his hand slowly. The gentle healer was gone. In his place stood a man whose calm had only ever been a locked door. I tried to keep this kingdom alive, he said. Caelan's sword remained raised. By murdering my mother's wolf? By preventing a dead queen's mistake from destroying your throne? The chamber shook. Nera's heart slammed against her ribs. Oren's eyes flicked to her. The Breath Luna bloodline was never mercy, Majesty. It was control. Sacred wolves did not merely bless those women. They obeyed them. Their final wills passed through them. Their memories survived inside them. A king with a Breath Luna beside him does not rule alone. Caelan's face went dangerously still. There it was. Not hatred, fear. Not of Nera as a person, but of what her existence meant to a throne built by men who wanted wolves to die quietly. The bowl warmed until Nera could hardly hold it. Oren took one step closer to the black frost circle. Your mother wanted to place that power in a child no council could command. I corrected her. Caelan's voice dropped. Where is the child? Oren smiled at Nera. The answer entered the chamber before he spoke it. Nera stopped breathing. No, she whispered. The white fur thread inside the split charm lifted from the floor and drifted toward her chest. It touched the hollow beneath her collarbone. Pain flashed. Not cutting pain. Remembering pain. A mark bloomed beneath her skin in pale light. 3 tiny wolf fang points, forming half a crown. Selene gasped from the stairs. Caelan stared at the mark, as if the world had lost its shape. Oren's smile faded. The bowl knocked again. This time, the sound became a cry. Small. Alive. Wolf. Nera looked down. Inside the dark crystal, a white wolf pup opened its eyes. The black frost circle surged inward. Oren raised the crescent blade. If the bloodline breathes, he said, then it can still be ended. Caelan stepped in front of Nera before the blade fell. Caelan's sword caught the crescent blade before it touched Nera. Steel screamed against moon silver. The sound tore through the buried chamber, and every scratched line on the walls flared brighter, as if the old shrine itself had opened its eyes. Nera stumbled back, clutching the crystal bowl to her chest. Inside it, the white wolf pup pressed one tiny paw against the dark glass. Alive. Impossible. Afraid. The sight struck something deep in her, deeper than pity. She had seen herself in many things before. Closed doors, cold kitchens, servants too tired to speak, but never in a newborn wolf trapped inside a holy vessel, breathing where everyone had expected only death. Oren pushed harder against Caelan's blade. You do not understand what you are protecting, he said. Caelan's face was carved in shadow and white light. Then speak carefully. The Breath Luna does not carry wolves, Oren said. She carries command over their dying will. Every sacred wolf that dies within her reach can leave truth inside her. Truth no king can bury. Truth no council can correct. Correct, Caelan repeated. The word was quiet, deadly. Oren's jaw tightened. Your mother would have shattered the throne with mercy. My mother was murdered. She was weakening Ravenglen. Caelan struck. Not wildly, not with rage alone. His sword drove Oren back 3 steps, fast enough that the healer barely lifted his crescent blade in time. Sparks of black frost burst between them and scattered over the stone. Selene cried out from the stairs, Majesty, stop! He is the royal healer. Caelan did not look away from Oren. And what are you? Selene van still. Nera looked at her. The cracked moonstone in Selene's hair pulsed again. Black frost shaped itself into a tiny wolf fang, then sank deeper into the jewel. Selena's lips parted. Fear, but not surprise. Nera understood then. Selene did not know everything, but she knew enough to be afraid of the wrong thing being seen. The bowl grew hot. Nera gasped, and the white pup inside opened its mouth. No sound came out. Instead, the chamber filled with a memory. The dead queen stood beside the stone cradle, younger than her portrait, her face pale from blood loss. The white wolf crouched near her, wounded but still guarding the door. In the queen's arms lay a baby wrapped in gray cloth. Nera could not see the child's face. She did not need to. The queen turned towards someone beyond the memory. "Orin, please," she whispered. "If Caelan cannot protect her, hide her until he can." Orin's younger voice answered from the dark. "I will hide her." The vision shifted. A silver cradle charm was torn from the baby's blanket. The white wolf lunged. Black frost struck her chest. The queen screamed. Then Orin's hand covered the child's mouth. The memory shattered. Nera swayed. Caelan's sword lowered an inch. Only an inch. But it was enough for pain to cross his face. "Orin," he said. The healer's expression hardened into something almost sad. "I did what your mother begged me to do. I hid the child. You stripped her name. I saved your throne. You killed my mother's wolf." "I wounded it," Orin said sharply. "There is a difference." The white pup in the bowl knocked again. Orin looked at it with hatred he could no longer hide. A sacred wolf's final breath can root into a breath, Luna, and be reborn through her line. That thing should never have opened its eyes. Nera's arms tightened around the bowl. "It is not a thing." Orin turned on her. "You are alive because I allowed you to be small." The words cut cleaner than a blade. Small. That was what her whole life had been shaped to make her. Small enough to pass unnoticed. Small enough to be ordered, blamed, starved, silenced. Small enough that no crown would look. But the bowl warmed against her heart, and the pup's frightened eyes did not leave hers. Nera lifted her chin. "You failed," she said. The chamber went silent. Caelan turned slightly, just enough to look at her. Not with pity, with recognition beginning to hurt. Orin moved. He flung black frost from his cracked ring, not at Caelan, but at the bowl. Caelan lunged, but Nera was closer. She twisted away, taking the strike across her shoulder instead. Cold fire tore through her. She fell to one knee. The crystal bowl hit the stone but did not break. Silver light burst from it, circling Nera like breath around a candle. The white pup inside gave one silent cry. Caelan caught Nera before she fully collapsed. His arm closed around her back, hard and steady. For one breath, Nera felt the heat of him through armor and winter leather. His control trembled. Not weakness. Fury held on a chain. "Enough," he said. Orin lifted the crescent blade again. "Move aside." Caelan rose slowly, bringing Nera up with him. This time, he did not let go. "You will not touch her." The black frost circle shook. On the chamber wall behind Nera, the bleeding moon script rearranged itself. Scratched lines healed into words she could suddenly read. The breath returns to the Luna who was hidden. The white pup pressed both paws to the crystal. Above Nera's shoulder, Caelan's dying wolf shadow stepped fully into the light for the first time. It was thin, iscarid, starved of breath, and it bowed its head to the bowl. Caelan went rigid. Nera felt it through his hand. Orin saw the bow and lost all color. "No," he whispered, "if his wolf accepts her, the severing will fail." Celine backed one step up the stairs. Too late. The cracked moonstone tore loose from her hair and flew into the frost circle. It struck the floor between Nera and Orin, split open, and released a strip of black breath that hissed like a living snake. Inside that breath, a woman's stolen voice whispered, "Do not let the king find the hidden Luna." Caelan looked at Celine. Celine stopped moving. Nera held the bowl tighter. The white pup opened its eyes wider. And every silver charm above the cradle snapped at once. The silver charms fell like broken stars. They struck the stone around Nera's feet, each tiny wolf fang splitting open as it landed. White fur, ash, a drop of dried blood, a torn thread of gray cloth, pieces of a life buried so carefully that even memory had been chained. The chamber filled with whispers. Not one voice. Many. Protect the child. Hide the breath. Do not trust the healer. The king must not know until his wolf remembers. Caelan's arm tightened around Nera. She felt the moment those last words entered him. His breath stopped. His scarred wolf shadow stood beside the crystal bowl, head bowed, ribs showing through darkness like moonlight through torn cloth. "My wolf remembers," Caelan said. Orin's face hardened. "Your wolf is dying." Dying things reach for any lie that feels warm. The white pup inside the bowl bared tiny teeth. For the first time, Sound came from it, a soft growl. The chamber answered. Every scratched-out line on the walls burned white, and the fallen charms dragged themselves across the floor, forming a broken circle around Nera. Not a prison. A witness ring. Celine backed toward the stairs. Caelan's gaze cut to her. Stay. The word stopped her like a hand around the throat. Her perfect court mask cracked. Majesty. I knew nothing of this. The black breath from her moonstone twisted at her feet, thin and snake-like, trying to crawl back toward her hem. Nera saw it. So did Caelan. Then why does your jewel carry stolen breath? He asked. Celine looked at Oren. That single glance condemned her more cleanly than confession. Oren's voice sharpened. Lady Celine is a loyal daughter of Ravenglen. Her family gave half its soldiers to your border wars. And in return? Caelan asked. Silence. The black breath hissed. Nera's shoulder burned where Oren's frost had struck her, but the bowl's warmth pressed against the pain as if the pup inside understood. She looked at Celine and saw not only cruelty now, but terror. The noblewoman had not come to the hall merely to laugh at an Omega. She had come believing the ending had already been arranged. You were meant to stand beside him, Nera said quietly. Celine's eyes flashed. Do not speak to me. The moonstone was proof, wasn't it? Nera continued, though fear shook her voice. Something to make the court believe the last breath chose you. Celine's face went pale. Caelan turned fully toward her. Oren moved at once. He slashed his crescent blade through the air, cutting the black breath free from the broken moonstone. It lunged toward Nera's chest like a fang. Caelan shoved her behind him. The breath struck his armor instead. He staggered. Nera heard his wolf shadow cry out. Not loud. Worse. Weak. The black breath sank through the plates of his armor and disappeared beneath his ribs. Caelan dropped to one knee, one hand braced against the stone. His crown of dark moonsteel tilted, and for the first time in Nera's life, the feared Alpha King looked breakable. Caelan! Selena cried. Her voice was too intimate. Nera noticed. Even in terror, she noticed. Oren smiled faintly. You see? Forbidden breath seeks the king's blood. The girl is the doorway. Nera stared at Caelan. His jaw was locked. Black frost crawled from beneath his collar, veining up the side of his throat. His wolf shadow thrashed beside him, suddenly bound by dark strands that looked like the same breath that had left Celine's jewel. Nera understood with cold clarity. The black breath had not attacked him for the first time. It had returned to a wound already there. You put that in him before, she whispered. Oren looked at her. No denial. Caelan lifted his head slowly. When? Oren's smile faded. Caelan's voice was rougher now. When did you bind my wolf? The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Celine's lips trembled. Majesty, he did it to save you. Caelan looked at her, and the last softness left his face. You knew. Tears brightened Celine's eyes, but they did not make her look innocent. Your wolf was rejecting every Luna trial. The council feared the Pax would turn. Oren said if your wolf could be quieted, the throne could choose a bride by law instead of instinct. Nera's stomach turned. A bride by law, a Luna without breath. A queen chosen because the true one had been buried beneath the word orphan. Caelan tried to stand and failed. Oren lifted his blade again. Enough. The king is compromised. The Omega must be severed, and the corrupted breath removed from his line. Nera stepped forward. Caelan's hand shot out and caught her wrist. Even in pain, his grip was command. Warning. Fear. Do not, he said. She looked down at him. For the first time, his eyes did not measure her. They begged without knowing how. The bowl knocked against her heart. The white pup pressed its muzzle to the crystal. Nera felt the dead queen's voice like a breath behind her ear. Carry what he cannot. She knelt before Caelan. Oren's expression changed. Do not let her touch him. Nera lifted one hand toward the black frost on Caelan's throat. I don't know what I am, she whispered. Caelan's pale eyes held hers. No, he said, voice breaking around pain. But they do. He released her wrist. Nera touched the black frost. The bowl burst open with white light. The pup's cry became a howl, and Caelan's dying wolf shadow tore one dark chain from its throat. The chain snapped, with a sound like thunder buried under ice. Caelan arched forward, one hand striking the stone floor hard enough to crack it. His wolf shadow reared behind him, no longer thin and silent, but not whole either. White light burned through its dark ribs where Nera's touch had broken the first binding. Oren staggered back. For the first time, he looked afraid of Nera, not disgusted, not offended, afraid. The white pup's howl poured from the broken bowl. Though the crystal had not shattered, it had opened. A seam of moonlight split its side, and silver breath spilled out in a circle around Nera and Caelan. The black frost on Caelan's throat recoiled. Nera kept her palm against his skin. Pain shot through her wrist, cold and sharp, but beneath it she felt something else, a memory that was not hers. A boy standing beside his mother's bed, a white wolf pressing its muzzle to his hand, Oren's voice promising, "The sickness will pass, Majesty." Then darkness, sinking into a young wolf's throat. Nera gasped and tried to pull away. Caelan caught her hand, not to stop her, but to keep her steady. "You saw it," he said. His voice was rough, half wolf. She nodded. Oren lifted the crescent blade. "She is invading your blood. She is showing me what you buried." Celine whispered from the stairs, "Caelan, please. If your wolf wakes fully, it may reject the Luna trial. It may reject every oath made in council." Caelan turned his head slowly. "That is what you fear?" Her lips trembled. The black breath at her feet curled around her ankle like a leash. Nera saw it then. Celine had not merely carried stolen breath. It was feeding from her, too. Not enough to kill, enough to bind. "Oren promised you the throne beside him," Nera said. Celine's eyes filled with hatred. "I was bred for it." "No," Caelan said coldly. "You were chosen by men who feared my wolf." The words struck the chamber harder than a blow. Celine flinched. Oren's mask cracked. A king who lets instinct rule him becomes a beast. A king who lets healers chain his wolf becomes a corpse with a crown. Caelan rose. Slowly, the black frost fought him, but Nera's hand still held the broken breathlight against his throat. His wolf shadow stepped closer, larger now, though one dark chain remained wrapped around its chest. Oren saw that chain. So did Nera. The healer smiled again, thin and cruel. "Break another, and you may not like what wakes." Caelan's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Oren's gaze slid to Nera. "Ask your breath, Luna." The title should have sounded like mockery. It did not. It passed through the chamber, and the silver charms on the floor trembled toward Nera. "Breath, Luna." The hidden word settled over her like snow on a grave. Nera shook her head. "I am not anyone's Luna." The white pup pressed its muzzle to the open seam of the bowl. Inside Nera's mind, the dead queen's voice answered softly. "Not his yet, ours first." The ash cradle cracked wider. Beneath the black ash lay a strip of white cloth, preserved by frost. Moonscript glowed across it in a woman's hurried hand. Caelan reached for it. Oren moved faster. He threw the crescent blade. Nera did not think. She lifted the broken bowl. The white pup lunged against the crystal seam, and breathlight burst outward. The blade froze midair, inches from Caelan's hand, then fell harmlessly to the floor. Silence followed. Caelan looked at Nera. So did Oren. Nera stared at the blade, trembling. "I did not mean to." "No," Oren said softly. "That is why you are dangerous." Caelan picked up the cloth. As he read, the little color left in his face vanished. "What does it say?" Nera asked. He did not answer at first. His thumb brushed the faded script, as if touching a wound. Then he read aloud. "If my son's wolf is chained, take the child to the breath vault. Only the hidden Luna can return what was stolen from him. But if Oren names her orphan, the crown will hunt her as nothing." Nera's throat closed. Nothing. That was the name they had given her before Nera. Nothing worth claiming. Nothing worth protecting. Nothing worth remembering. Caelan lowered the cloth. When he looked at her, the suspicion had not vanished, but something deeper stood beside it now. Guilt. Recognition. Need. Oren clapped once, slow and hollow. A touching relic, and yet incomplete. He raised his cracked healer's ring. "The breath vault cannot be opened by pity, Majesty. It opens only when the hidden Luna willingly carries the king's dying wolf into the dark." The remaining chain around Caelan's wolf shadow tightened. Caelan grimaced but did not fall. Nera saw the truth before anyone said it. If they did nothing, his wolf would die. If she helped, She would step into whatever trap Orin had prepared years ago. Celine wiped at her tears, her voice turning bitter. She will not do it. Omegas survive by running. Nera looked at her, then at Caelan. He said nothing. No command, no plea. That was what decided her. All her life, people had ordered her into pain and called it duty. For once, the choice stood before her untouched. Nera lifted the open bowl against her chest. The white pup inside quieted. "I will carry him," she said. Caelan's face tightened. "You do not know what that means." "No," Nera whispered, "but I know what it means to be left in the dark." The chamber floor split beneath the ash cradle. A stair of white stone descended into blackness. From below came a wolf's broken breath. And then a voice, older than the shrine, whispered Nera's name. The stair beneath the ash cradle breathed like a wounded animal. Cold air rose from it, carrying the scent of old stone, dead leaves, and wolf fur soaked in rain. Nera stood at the edge, with the opened bowl pressed to her chest. Inside, the white pup watched the darkness below, as if it knew the place and feared it. Caelan stepped beside her. His wolf shadow followed, one chain still buried through its chest. Each movement made the dark links tighten. Each tightening pulled pain across Caelan's face, though he tried to hide it. Nera saw. He knew she saw. Neither of them spoke. Orin remained inside the black frost circle, his cracked ring glowing faintly. The breath vault was sealed for a reason. Sacred wolves do not forgive what they remember. Caelan looked back at him. "Then you should fear it more than she does." Orin smiled. "I do." The honesty chilled Nera more than any threat. Celine stood near the stairs above them, no longer pretending calm. The black breath around her ankle had tightened like a leash. She stared at Nera with hatred, but beneath it was something weaker. Envy. "You will die down there," Celine said. "A crown made of breath cannot save an Omega from old wolves." Nera looked at the white pup in the bowl. "No," she said, "but maybe old wolves remember what everyone else buried." She stepped down. The first stair lit beneath her foot. White. Then the next. Then the next. Caelan followed close enough that she could feel the heat of him at her back, though he still did not touch her. That restraint unsettled her more than touch would have. He was a king, trained to take command. Yet he walked behind her now because the hidden stair had answered her first. They descended until the chamber above became a pale square of light. At the bottom waited a door made of bone-white stone. No handle, no lock, only a carved wolf mouth, closed around a hollow circle. The opened bowl pulsed in Nera's hands. Caelan's voice was low. "Do you know what it wants?" Nera almost laughed. It would have sounded broken. "Majesty, until tonight, I was not trusted to carry clean linen near the royal bedrooms." His mouth tightened. "Caelan." She looked at him. The single name stood between them, dangerous and bare. He seemed to regret giving it, but did not take it back. Nera swallowed. "Caelan, I don't know what it wants." The wolf mouth in the door opened. Not fully. Enough for a whisper to escape. Breath for breath. Caelan's wolf shadow shuddered. The chain in its chest pulled tight, and Caelan gripped the wall. Nera turned at once. "You're wolf. Do not stop. You can barely stand." "I have stood with worse." "No," Nera said, surprising herself with the sharpness of it. "You have hidden worse." His eyes met hers. For a moment, the darkness around them felt too narrow for a king's pride and an abandoned girl's truth. Then Caelan gave one bitter breath. "Yes." The word was not an explanation. It was a wound opening. Nera lifted the bowl toward the door. The white pup pressed its nose to the crystal seam. Silver mist flowed from it into the hollow circle between the carved wolf's teeth. The door drank the light. Inside the stone, something massive exhaled. The door opened. The breath vault was not a room. It was a forest buried under the palace. White trees grew from black earth. Their branches carried no leaves, only hanging threads of silver breath, each glowing softly like a soul that had not decided whether to leave. Between the trees stood wolves made of mist and bone light, hundreds of them, silent and watching. Nera could not move. Every wolf turned its head toward her. Then, one by one, they lowered themselves to the ground. Not for Caelan, for her. Nera's throat closed. "I don't want this," she whispered. Caelan stood beside her now, pale with pain. Wanting does not always choose us. No, but men do. He chose to hide me. He chose to hurt your wolf. He chose to make all of this law. Yes. The answer was immediate. No defense. No royal distance. Just yes. A path opened between the white trees. At its end stood a pool of still silver water. Above it hung 3 chains of black breath, descending from nothing into the reflection below. Caelan's wolf shadow growled. The remaining chain in its chest answered. Nera knew before she understood. That is where he put the rest of you, she said. Caelan's face hardened. Then we cut it out. The white pup whimpered. From the silver pool, the dead queen's voice rose again. No blade, only breath. The wolves of the vault lifted their heads. Nera felt their memories press against her. Too many, too old, too full of endings. She staggered. Caelan caught her elbow before she fell. The touch was brief, burning. The silver water rippled. In its reflection, Nera saw not herself, but a newborn wrapped in gray cloth, a white wolf curled around her, and a young queen bending close with tears on her face. Then the reflection changed. Oren stood over the cradle. Beside him stood Celine's father, younger, wearing the Western Ridge crest. Nera's blood went cold. The dead queen whispered, "He did not act alone." Above them, in the chamber they had left behind, Celine screamed. The black breath around Caelan's wolf chain suddenly tightened. Caelan dropped to one knee, and every wolf in the breath vault opened its mouth at once. The wolves of the breath vault did not howl. They exhaled. Hundreds of dead, sacred wolves released one breath together, and the buried forest filled with white mist so bright Nera could no longer see the trees. She felt the breath pass through her hair, her skin, the hollow beneath her collarbone where the hidden crown mark burned. Caelan collapsed beside the silver pool. The black chain in his wolf shadow's chest had tightened until the dark creature could no longer stand. It dragged itself toward him, claws scraping soundlessly over the white roots, its dim eyes fixed on Nera as if she were the last doorway left in the world. Above them, Celine's scream cut off. Then came Oren's voice from the stair, sharp with command. "Do not let them reach the pool." Nera turned. Black frost spilled down the vault entrance like ink. Celine stumbled through it first, pale and shaking, the broken moonstone at her throat now bound by Oren's silver chain. Her father's crest glowed faintly on the charm, the same Western Ridge mark Nera had seen in the pool. Behind her came Oren. He no longer pretended to be healer first. The crescent blade in his hand had turned black. Caelan tried to rise. Nera caught his shoulder. "No." His eyes burned with fury and pain. "I will not kneel while he walks toward you." "You already are kneeling," she whispered. Not to him, to what he stole. That stopped him. Only for a breath. But it was enough. The white pup inside the opened bowl pressed itself against the crystal seam and whimpered. The sound went through Nera like a thread being pulled from her ribs. The dead queen's voice brushed her mind, breath for breath. Nera looked at the silver pool. The 3 black chains above it were not metal. They were stolen final breaths, twisted and hardened into bindings. One belonged to Caelan's wolf. One, she suddenly knew, belonged to the queen's murdered wolf. The last was smaller. Nowhere. It led toward her. Nera's stomach turned. "My breath," she said. Oren smiled from the edge of the trees. "Not yours. The breath you were born with. The proof your mother died hiding." Caelan's face changed. "Her mother?" Oren's smile deepened. "Did you think the queen handed her child to a washerwoman? No. The breath Lunaline survived through a woman your mother trusted more than any counsel, a servant with sacred wolf blood. Nera was born beneath the queen's protection, not from her body." The word struck Nera strangely. Not disappointment, relief. She had not wanted a crown because of a royal womb. She wanted a name because someone had loved her enough to hide her. The silver pool rippled. In it, Nera saw a woman with tired eyes and ash-brown hair pressing a newborn into the dead queen's arms. Beside them, the white wolf stood guard, already bleeding. The woman whispered, "Let her live nameless, if name will kill her." Nera's eyes burned. Caelan watched the vision, and something in him softened with grief. Oren lifted the blade. "Touch the pool, and every secret in this vault wakes. The council will fracture, the ridge packs will revolt, Ravenglen will drown in old blame." Good, Caelan said. The word was quiet, savage. Orin's eyes narrowed. Caelan forced himself upright, one hand braced on Nera's arm. A kingdom that survives by burying women and chaining wolves deserves to fracture. Celine made a small, broken sound. My father did what he had to do. Nera looked at her. No, he did what made you almost queen. The black breath around Celine's throat pulsed. For the first time, Celine looked ashamed. Orin did not give her time to speak. He slashed the black blade across his palm and threw blood into the silver pool. The water turned dark. The 3 chains plunged downward, dragging Caelan's wolf shadow with them. Caelan gasped, his knees buckling. Nera caught him, but the pull was too strong. The white pup cried. Nera felt the vault waiting. Not for strength, for choice. All her life, she had been carried by other people's decisions. Abandoned, named Omega, sent to kitchens, dragged into court, forced beneath a dying wolf. Now the breath vault opened before her like a mouth. It asked nothing. Nera set the bowl on the edge of the pool. Then she placed both hands into the blackened water. Pain tore through her. Every buried breath rushed into her at once. The dead wolves, the queen, her mother, Caelan's chained wolf. The stolen warning hidden in Celine's moonstone. Too many endings. Too many last wishes. Nera screamed, but she did not pull away. Caelan's hand closed over her shoulder. Come back, he rasped. His voice found her inside the dark. Not command. Fear. Nera opened her eyes. White light poured from her mouth. The black water became silver again. One chain snapped, then the second. Caelan's wolf shadow rose with a soundless roar. No longer starved, its dark body filling with silver breath. It lunged at the final chain, wrapped around Nera's own hidden breath. Orin shouted, Kill her before it breaks! Selene moved. For one terrible breath, Nera thought she would obey. Instead, Celine tore the broken moonstone from her throat and threw it into the pool. The black breath inside it burst apart. The final chain cracked. Orin's face twisted with rage. You foolish girl. He raised the blade towards Celine. Caelan moved faster. His restored wolf shadow struck through him like living night. Orin flew backward into the white trees. The final chain around Nera's breath snapped. The vault exploded with moonlight. When the light faded, Nera was standing in the silver pool. The white pup no longer inside the bowl. It stood beside her on the water, larger now, eyes moon-white, and above its head burned the same crown of breath as hers. Then the wolf pup looked toward the palace above and growled. The court was not finished. It was waiting. The breath vault opened beneath Nera's feet. Not with stone, with memory. White roots lifted from the silver pool and formed a path upward through the dark. The wolf pup walked first, no longer small enough to fit inside a bowl, its moon-white eyes fixed on the palace above. Breath crowned its head in trembling light, matching the crown that burned over Nera. Caelan stood beside her, his restored wolf shadow rising behind him like night-given teeth. He looked stronger, not healed, stronger. There was a difference Nera understood. Some wounds did not vanish when the chain broke. They only stopped being someone else's weapon. Celine knelt near the pool, one hand pressed to her bare throat where the broken moonstone had been. She would not meet Nera's eyes. Orin lay among the white trees, blood dark on his healer's robes, but his fingers still moved toward his cracked ring. Caelan saw it. So many years, he said, voice low, and still you reach for another chain. Orin laughed once, thin and bitter. You think the court will accept this? An Omega with breathcraft? A hidden Luna bred from servant blood? They will call her curse before they call her queen. Nera stepped out of the pool. The white wolf beside her grew with every step, breath-shaping bone-light, fur, crown, and memory. It was not the dead shrine wolf reborn exactly. It was the final will she had carried, given form by truth. No, Nera said. They will call me what they wish. Orin's smile sharpened. Nera looked at him, and for the first time in her life, his kind of cruelty seemed small. But they will hear what you buried first. The vault answered. Every white tree released a thread of silver breath. The threads wrapped around Orin's wrists, not cutting, not burning, only holding him still. His eyes widened as the wolves of the vault turned their heads toward him. Caelan lifted his sword. Nera touched his arm. He stopped. It was such a small thing, that pause. A king halting because an abandoned girl's fingers asked him to, yet the whole vault seemed to breathe around it. "Not here," she said. "Not where he can pretend death made him silent." Caelan looked at her, then lowered the blade. Together, they climbed. When Nera emerged into the buried shrine chamber, the nobles above were already shouting. The court had spilled down to the first stair, too afraid to descend fully, too hungry to remain away. Guards stood with swords half raised. Western ridge lords clustered around Celine's father, Lord Mar, whose face had gone gray the moment he saw his daughter return without her moonstone. Then the white wolf stepped into view. Silence struck harder than any command. The wolf was enormous now, made of silver breath and moonfire, crowned in pale fangs of light. Its body glowed with the memory of the murdered shrine wolf, but its eyes were young, alive, and fixed on the court. Nera walked beside it. The nobles looked at her dress first. Muddy hem, burned shoulder, silver cuffs hanging broken from one wrist. Then they looked above her head. The breath crown still burned. Someone whispered, "Breath, Luna." Orin was dragged behind them by threads of silver light. He did not look like a villain from old songs. He looked like what he had always been, a powerful man furious that the hidden had learned to speak. Caelan stepped onto the shrine floor. "My mother's wolf was murdered," he said. The court recoiled. Orin shouted, "A lie shaped by forbidden breath." The white wolf turned its head. One breath left its mouth. The chamber filled with the vision. The dead queen running through snow, Nera's mother handing over the newborn, Orin tearing away the cradle charm, Lord Mar standing at the shrine arch with Western soldiers, Celine as a young woman years later receiving a moonstone filled with stolen black breath, Caelan's wolf chained while he slept beneath healers' drafts. No one could look away. The truth did not accuse loudly. It simply stood where lies had been sitting. Lord Mar tried to run. The guard wolves blocked him before human guards moved. Celine fell to her knees, shaking. "I wanted the crown," she whispered. "I did not know the child lived." Nera looked at her. Anger rose. So did grief. So did the memory of every smile Celine had used like a blade. But Nera saw the black marks around Celine's throat where the stolen breath had leashed her too. "You knew enough," Nera said. Celine bowed her head and did not answer. Orin struggled against the breath threads. "Kill me then. Make your new Luna's first act blood." Caelan's wolf shadow snarled. The court waited for the king's rage. Nera stepped forward instead. "No," she said. "You will live long enough to name every child you buried, every wolf you chained, every woman you erased from shrine record. You will speak until there is nothing left in you but truth." The white wolf lowered its crowned head. Orin's mouth opened. He fought it. Failed. Names poured from him. Servants, omegas, shrine women. Healers who refused him. Wolves whose final breaths had been sealed into jewels, blades, rings, and marriage contracts. The court listened as its clean laws filled with graves. Caelan stood beside Nera through it all. Not in front of her, beside her. When Orin's voice finally broke, dawn had begun to pale the high windows of the Hall of First Howls. The nobles were on their knees now, some from fear, some from shame, some because their wolves had forced them there. Caelan turned to Nera. The hall held its breath. He removed the dark moonsteel crown from his own head. Nera stiffened. "Do not." His eyes searched hers. "You think I mean to choose you before them?" Her throat tightened. "Everyone has chosen what I am tonight." "No," he said. "They named what they feared. That is not the same thing." He lowered the crown, not onto her head, but to the stone between them. Then he knelt. The Alpha King knelt before the abandoned Omega, while every wolf in Ravenglen watched. "I do not claim you as prize, punishment, or proof," he said. "I ask you to stand beside me when you choose. Not because the breath crowned you, because when every law told you to bow, you still remembered the dying." Nera could not breathe. The white wolf pressed gently against her side. The breath crown above her head softened. No longer a public miracle, but a quiet moon. She looked at the king kneeling before her, the man who had hesitated, the man who had failed to know, the man who had lowered his blade when she asked, not forgiven fully. Not loved, easily, but seen. Nera reached down and touched his hand. "Stand, Caelan." He did. The court remained kneeling. As dawn entered the hall, the white wolf lifted its head and released one final breath toward the ceiling. The silver glass roof filled with moonlight, though the moon had already set. Every hidden name Orin had spoken appeared there in pale fire. Mara's name was among them. Nera saw it and wept. Not because she was weak, because someone finally could. Caelan stood beside her, his wolf shadow whole at his back, and did not touch her tears. He only remained close enough that she knew if she reached, he would be there. The white wolf's crown faded into Nera's. The last breath had found its vessel. The hidden Luna had found her name. And for the first time in Ravenglen, the throne did not ask the wolves to be silent.